So what is a leader? What's that first thing that popped into your head? Maybe you thought of someone with power, someone who has an influence on a group of people, or maybe even someone who challenges the way that you see things. Now, the goal of my presentation today is to show you that leadership is not always about prestige, power, and status. I'm going to be examining the qualities of a quiet leader by looking at the life of Katherine Johnson, the woman who did the calculations for the first moon landing in 1969. Now, Katherine Johnson, she was seen as a second-class citizen at the time due to being African American as well as a woman, but gained recognition as a great research scientist at NASA. So my name is Melanie Campo, and this is my presentation called One Small Step for a Woman, One Giant Leap for Womankind. And in this presentation, I'll be looking at numerous different things, namely, what are the qualities of a quiet leader, the life and achievements of Katherine Johnson, what events made her a leader, what did she have to overcome in a man's world, and finally, why I consider her a quiet leader. Now, first things first, what is a quiet leader? It's important to note that quiet leaders will mostly work in the background. They're not in the limelight. They're not going to be giving you orders or telling you what to do. Most of the time, they're going to be simply doing what they think is right, focusing on their own work, which is then going to influence others to follow and do the same. There are a few disadvantages as you can see with this type of quality, is that they won't always get the recognition that they deserve, and they might also limit their career advancement opportunities. It's also important to note that a quiet leader is someone who's able to see things from a different perspective and are able to look at the big picture and give different insights and different views on what they should do in their problem-solving skills. And then lastly, they can understand and appreciate the importance of doing good quality work. As for Katherine Johnson, she was born in 1918 in West Virginia. She loved to count for as long as she can remember. Her teachers saw that she was extremely intellectual, which is why she was in high school by the age of 10. She then went on to graduate with a Bachelor of Science degree in math and French. She got her first job at NACA, which is the name of NASA before they changed it, in 1953 as a computer in the Guidance and Navigation program. She was always one to ask a lot of questions, and she were challenging a lot of policies, which raised some red flags at the place that she worked. Definitely got the attention of some of the heads of office there. And with her knowledge in geometry, the men started to rely on her, and they started to bring her in for different projects and different assignments that they had. She was also the only woman at the time to have been pulled out of the computer pool, to work on different projects. It was only in 1962 that President John F. Kennedy charged to send a man into space. She was then chosen to work on that project, and she was able to calculate the trajectory for getting a man into space, and finally to get a man on the moon by 1969. And it was only in 1986 that she retired and got many prestigious awards. Now, the events that made her a leader were that she had a vision. Now, she had a vision not only to do what she loved and work at NASA, but also to get a man on the moon. She also pushed a lot of the societal norms at the time, because she was always asking to go into the meetings, but for some reason the men always told her no. So it was then that she challenged that and said, why? Is there a law? Is there a reason why I can't do it? She challenged them, and then because they didn't have an answer, she then was allowed to go into the meeting and get the information. She was always leading by example and thinking outside of the box. There was a time that the team got stuck and couldn't figure out a proper calculation or how to calculate the trajectory, but it was Katherine Johnson who suggested that they use Euler's method. Now, Euler's method was a very outdated and unused method of doing calculations. However, it was one that worked. And finally, because she was working in the background, she never really wanted the recognition. However, there was a time that they didn't trust her with the paperwork, so they would block out with a Sharpie all of the important information and give her the paper so that she can check their calculations. However, because she didn't have all of the proper paperwork, she couldn't do good quality work and actually finish the calculations and check them for them. It was then she got pulled into the office by one of the head office guys and was asked, how do you know this information if it was blocked out? Are you a spy? But it turns out she held it up to the light, was able to read through it, and that's when they realized they can trust her and that she was a valuable asset to the team. So next, what did she have to overcome? Now there was many things that she had to overcome, especially because she was working in a time where segregation, racism, sexism, and societal lines were very big issues. The greatest thing is that she had to prove to everyone, that women are capable of doing scientific, technical work. She also had to overcome the pressures of being the only woman who was on the space task force at the time. She would get stares from across the rooms, they would mutter behind her, they would say different things that weren't very nice. Also, when she was attending the briefings, like I mentioned before, she had to force for her way to get into these briefings, and even then, the men were very unhappy and uncomfortable with it. And finally, because she was able to get trusted with the information, they had to eventually accept her as one of the team. Now, there was things like in conclusion, why I consider her a quiet leader is because, for one, she led by example. She had a vision to work at NASA and to get a man to the moon. She went against the societal norms and what people thought was right at the time. She asked a lot of questions, challenged the policies, and thought outside of the box. She led by example, and although she was always operating in the background, she knew and realized the importance of the work that she was doing. She realized and recognized the complexity and importance of doing her work because her calculations were the ones that were going to decide if a man was going to succeed or fail in his mission to get to the moon. In conclusion, overall, Katherine Johnson is not your typical leader. As a quiet leader, she works in the background. She did her calculations, always knew that she was doing a good job. She never really thought of herself as a leader. She just inspired others to follow her. She also gave a lot of hope to African American women at the time to start pursuing and pushing for what they believe in. And I do believe that because of her work she did at NASA, she opened a lot of doors for other women to start working in positions of powers and to be taken seriously today. I read once that a leader's success is defined and measured by the work that they contributed. And for me, I definitely think she contributed to why women today are able to be seen as equals. Now, the quote that I chose as my closing quote is that the task of a leader is to get the people from where they are to where they want to be. And I think that's a very appropriate quote to end this presentation. Thank you very much.